Hairspray wasn't just a movie. It was a dance revolution, a pastel-colored protest, and a love letter to every misfit who ever dreamed of changing the world from their living room. When it hit theaters in 1988, audiences didn't quite know what to make of it. It wasn't your typical Hollywood musical. It was loud, it was camp, it was sweet, funny, weird, and underneath all that hair and glitter, it was radical. At the center of it all was John Waters, the man Hollywood had spent 2 decades trying to ignore. The same man who built his career on controversy, shock value, and underground filth. The same man who once directed a movie where a drag queen famously ate dog poop on purpose. And now, that same man was releasing a PG-rated musical about racial equality and body positivity. No one saw it coming. Waters went from the king of bad taste to the director of one of the most heartwarming movies of the decade, and he did it without losing his edge. He simply found a new way to make noise. Set in 1962, Baltimore, Hairspray followed Tracy Turnblad, a plus-size teenager with big dreams, big moves, and even bigger hair. Armed with optimism, rhythm, and a moral compass sharper than her eyeliner, Tracy set out to integrate a segregated dance show and change her city, one twirl at a time. But behind the catchy tunes, the towering wigs, and the sugar-sweet tone, the story of Hairspray's production is full of chaos, charm, and moments as wild as anything John Waters ever created. So grab your Aquanet, tease your hair sky-high, and get ready to dance through the weird, funny, and surprising history of Hairspray, 1988. The movie that turned rebellion into rhythm and chaos into choreography. But the biggest surprise wasn't the wigs, or the music, or even the rebellion hidden under all that glitter. It was the man behind the camera, John Waters himself, and how he transformed from the Pope of Trash into the unlikeliest family filmmaker. Before Hairspray, John Waters was the last person anyone would expect to make a wholesome movie. His early films, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, were underground masterpieces of madness. He filmed drag queens, criminals, and weirdos in Baltimore back alleys with a camera that barely worked and a budget smaller than your electric bill. He was a legend among misfits, a hero for outsiders, and a punchline to mainstream Hollywood. And then, he decided to go clean. Hairspray became his first and only PG-rated movie. Gone were the shocking acts, the taboo topics, the filth and fury. In their place, dancing, laughter, and heart. But here's the twist. John Waters didn't actually tone down his rebellion. He just changed the delivery. Instead of offending audiences, he invited them in. Instead of shouting, "Look how weird I am," he said, "You're weird too, and that's beautiful." Critics called it his sellout moment. Waters called it evolution. He told a reporter, "I didn't sell out. I bought in." And maybe that's true. Because underneath all that pastel-colored joy, Hairspray was still a John Waters movie. It was about outsiders, it was about rebellion, and it was about telling the world to lighten up, preferably with a dance number. But if John Waters shocked the world by going PG, just wait until you see what his partner in chaos did in her final, unforgettable role. Divine was John Waters' muse, a drag icon, a cultural shockwave, and a legend in platform heels. For years, Divine had been the outrageous centerpiece of Waters' most notorious films. But Hairspray was different. For the first time, Divine played not a villain or caricature, but a mom. Edna Turnblad, Tracy's overprotective yet lovable mother, became one of cinema's most unlikely matriarchs. Divine brought warmth, humor, and heart to the role. A far cry from the chaos of Pink Flamingos. But that wasn't all. Waters cast Divine in another secret role, Arvin Hodgepile, the grumpy, prejudiced TV station manager trying to ban black dancers from the corny Collins show. Most viewers never realized they were watching the same actor. Two polar opposites, mother and monster, both played by one man. Waters said Divine loved the irony. He got to play both sides of the American dream, the loving mom and the hateful boss, and he nailed them both. Tragically, Hairspray would be Divine's last performance. 3 weeks after the movie's release, he passed away in his sleep. It was the end of an era, but what a final act. His farewell wasn't shocking or grotesque. It was pure love, sealed with laughter and a can of Hairspray. And speaking of unforgettable, the star at the center of it all had her own behind-the-scenes battle with a diet no one expected. She was nervous, unpolished, and had never acted in a movie before. But when she smiled, the entire room lit up. Waters later said, "She walked in like she already was Tracy Turnblad." The role was hers on the spot. But as filming began, Ricky started losing weight, fast. All that dancing, twirling, and running up and down Baltimore streets was having an effect. And suddenly, continuity became a problem. Waters told her, "You're losing too much weight. You need to eat more." Ricky laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. He literally sent her to diners between takes and told her to order milkshakes, fries, and burgers. In an industry obsessed with thinness, Hairspray did the opposite. It celebrated curves, confidence, and charisma. Ricky Lake later said, "It was the only time in my life that anyone in Hollywood told me to gain weight and meant it." Tracy wasn't beautiful despite her size. She was beautiful because of her energy, joy, and defiance. Of course, Tracy's story wasn't just fiction. Believe it or not, the dance show that started it all was very, very real. The movie's famous dance show, The Corny Collins Show, was based on a real local TV program from Baltimore called The Buddy Dean Show. In real life, it was a hit. White teenagers dancing to pop songs after school. But it had a dark truth. The show was segregated. Black teenagers were allowed on screen only one day a month, on what producers called Negro Day. Waters, who grew up in Baltimore, watched it as a teenager and never forgot how wrong it felt. Decades later, he turned that memory into satire. In Hairspray, the kids dance, rebel, and integrate the show themselves. It's funny, lighthearted, but also deeply political. Waters didn't make a film about politics. He made a film about joy as resistance. He once said, "You can't hate people who make you laugh." Hairspray proved that humor can hit harder than a sermon, especially when it's wearing a wig. But to pull off that satire, Waters needed a villain, and he almost lost his most iconic one before filming even began, a lie. When punk legend Debbie Harry, better known as the lead singer of Blondie, got the script for Hairspray, she wasn't sure about it. She loved John Waters, but she didn't love the idea of playing a racist TV mom. She told him, "I don't want to be the villain. I want to be the cool mom." Waters told her, "Trust me, Velma Von Tussle is the cool villain." She agreed, and with that, Debbie Harry became the ultimate bad mom. High heels, high hair, and even higher levels of vanity. She wore a blonde beehive that looked like a weapon, and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She later said, "It's freeing to play evil when you know the movie's smarter than the character." Her performance added just the right mix of glamour and grotesque. The result, Velma Von Tussle became one of the most iconic and ironically beloved villains of the 80s. And if you thought Debbie Harry's beehive was wild, wait until you hear about the one scene so gross it got cut from the movie entirely. Even though Hairspray was PG rated, Waters couldn't resist sneaking in one last gross-out gag. He filmed a deleted scene where Tracy wakes up one morning and finds cockroaches living in her beehive hairdo. It was a reference to an old urban legend about a girl who never washed her hair and had bugs nesting inside. They even used real cockroaches. When the scene was shown at a test screening, people screamed, covered their eyes, and one woman reportedly ran out of the theater. The studio forced Waters to cut it. He sighed, laughed, and said, "That's when I knew I'd gone respectable. They made me remove the bugs." Somewhere in the dusty Warner Brothers archives, there's still a reel of dancing cockroaches waiting to crawl back onto the big screen. Gross-out gags aside, Waters wasn't too worried about history books either, because he happily filmed Hairspray in the wrong year. The movie is set in 1962, but many of the filming locations, including Perry Hall High School, didn't even exist until 1963. A historical error, sure, but when a production assistant pointed it out, Waters didn't blink. He just said, "Who cares? Nobody checks calendars when they're dancing." He wasn't making a documentary, he was making a dream, and dreams don't have fact-checkers. But speaking of things hidden in plain sight, there's one cameo in Hairspray that fans still miss to this day. Blink and you'll miss him. Midway through the film, a psychiatrist named Dr. Fredrickson appears on screen, trying to cure Tracy of her obsession with dancing. That doctor? John Waters himself. Clean-shaven, in a suit, pretending to be normal. It's the most ironic cameo in his entire career. He later joked, "Playing a psychiatrist was the most disturbing thing I've ever done." For a man who built a career on chaos, acting as the voice of order was the ultimate punchline. And hey, if you're still dancing through these facts, don't stop now. If you're loving the weird, wild world of Hairspray, hit that like button drop a comment, and subscribe before the next dance break, because here, everyone gets a turn on the dance floor. And just like his hidden cameo, Waters bent more than visuals. He bent time itself with a soundtrack that shouldn't have existed yet. The film is set in early 1962, but one of its songs, You Don't Own Me, by Leslie Gore, wasn't released until 1963. Waters knew this, and he didn't care. The lyrics, "Don't tell me what to do, and don't tell me what to say," captured Tracy's defiance perfectly. He called it the anthem of the movie. Historical accuracy be damned. Emotional accuracy always wins. Even the music wasn't the only rebel, because if you look closely, the credits themselves broke the rules. At the end of the film, the Roman numerals that were supposed to spell 1988 are wrong. Was it a typo? Was it a hidden joke? No one knows. But fans call it the John Waters signature, a final wink from a man who never did anything by the book. Even the credits refused to conform. And yet, in the middle of all that rebellion, one comedian brought the film full circle, in a way no one could have planned. Comedian Jerry Stiller played Wilbur Turnblad, Tracy's kind, quirky, and supportive father. He was the heart of the film, the dad who danced, the husband who believed, the man who reminded everyone that love doesn't judge. Nearly 20 years later, when Hairspray was remade as a musical in 2007, Stiller returned. This time, he played Mr. Pinky, the flamboyant dress shop owner. It was poetic symmetry, like the movie had come home again, one wink at a time. And here's the craziest part. This little underdog film wasn't supposed to work, but it did, and it kept on growing. Hairspray had a budget of just $2.7 million, tiny by Hollywood standards. No stars, no big studio push, no marketing campaign, but what it had was joy and word of mouth. Audiences loved it, critics raved, and the film went on to earn over $8 million worldwide. Not bad for a movie that started as a passion project about dancing teens and civil rights. And the best part? It didn't stop there. Hairspray was adapted into a Broadway musical that won 8 Tony Awards and later became a 2007 blockbuster starring John Travolta and Michelle Pfeiffer. The movie about outsiders became one of Hollywood's most successful underdog stories. But beneath the laughs, the camp, and the chaos, there was something much bigger at play, a protest disguised as a punchline. Behind the comedy and camp, Hairspray had something powerful to say. It wasn't just about hair, it was about hope. It tackled segregation, body image, conformity, and courage, all through laughter and dance. Waters' genius was in the disguise. He made people laugh so hard they didn't realize they were watching a message about equality. He said, if you make people laugh, you can tell them anything. And he was right. Hairspray didn't lecture. It invited you to dance your way into empathy. And at the heart of it all was Divine, whose bittersweet farewell made Hairspray more than just a comedy. It made it a legacy. Divine's death was a heartbreak no one saw coming. The night before he passed, he'd been celebrating the success of Hairspray. He was scheduled to start filming a new sitcom the next day. Waters said he finally got everything he wanted, and then he was gone. But what a legacy he left behind. Through Edna Turnblad, Divine became the soul of the movie. Kind, brave, funny, and unapologetically himself. His final performance wasn't shocking. It was human. It was love in drag. And that legacy, it transformed John Waters from Hollywood's trashiest outsider into one of its most celebrated voices. For decades, John Waters was Hollywood's unwanted child. Too strange, too bold, too different. Then Hairspray happened. Suddenly, the man they once called disgusting was being hailed as a genius. His movie was studied in film schools, praised by critics, and loved by families. But Waters didn't change. He just found a way to make the world meet him halfway. He turned his chaos into color, his weirdness into warmth, his rebellion into rhythm. Hairspray wasn't a sellout. It was a victory. It proved that even the strangest voices deserve to be heard, and sometimes those are the voices that change everything. Closing moral. Hairspray wasn't supposed to work. It was too weird, too campy, too joyfully offbeat, but maybe that's why it did. It celebrated difference in a time of sameness. It laughed in the face of prejudice. It danced in places that told it to sit still. John Waters didn't just make a movie. He made a mirror ball for misfits, and when the light hit it just right, it reflected everyone. So the next time the world tells you to shrink, to hide, to fit in, turn up the music, tease your hair higher, and dance anyway. Because some revolutions don't start with anger. They start with joy, and maybe, just maybe, a whole lot of hairspray.